Hey there, this is Jitsy, and this is the Crush Chronicles, a podcast about crushes and how they affect our lives as humans. So grab your coffee or wine, pull out your old diaries, and settle in for today's interview and discussion. Turning the pages of that volume and rereading the thoughtful notes that classmates addressed to me, I stumble across Robbie's message. I run my fingers over his signature, and I can feel where his pen pressed into the page, forever leaving his mark. The passage tickles my lips into a grin as space and time spin me backwards to the last days in May of 2003. Okay, this is episode 2 of the Crush Chronicles podcast, and I am happy to introduce Kim, she, her, as the featured guest today. Welcome, Kim.
Hello, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. Thanks for being here. Okay, so before we start with all the hot gossip that we're going to get into, please go ahead and share a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Kim Lopez. I am from Corona, California. I am the creator of a business called the Astral Priory, where I'm an Akashic Records practitioner, as well as a dream tending practitioner. So I work with people's dreams a lot. I am also a costume maker professionally, and I am a mother to a 13-year-old dog named Peanut, and that's about it.
That is, she's got many talents, multi-talented
Many
person
hats.
here. Yeah, and really great at everything that she does from personal experience. Just going to put that out there. So let's get started with our icebreaker. So yeah, before we get into our main topic, let's talk about who is a current celebrity or fictional crush you have currently, or one that you had in childhood.
Well, okay, so the current celebrity crushes, honestly, that's kind of hard because so frequently I've had crushes, like celebrity crushes, where something has come up later on where accusations and stuff have, I just can't have crushes on celebrities anymore. It's so hard. But when I was a kid, one of my biggest celebrity crushes, junior high, was Freddie Prinze Jr. And I had a huge crush on Brendan Fraser.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I couldn't contain myself with that one.
I had his poster from The Mummy on my closet, I think. I had so many celebrity crushes when I was young.
What a great choice, because the costume from The Mummy is very on point.
Yeah.
For making him look extra handsome.
Oh yeah, he was so hot.
I actually saw a tweet recently. It just said, it was a woman that just said, every woman really just wants one thing, and that's for Brendan Fraser to be happy.
Yes, I agree. He was so pinnacle in the late 90s and stuff, and then he disappeared, which the reasons were understandable, but it's nice to see him kind of coming back. I mean, obviously we're all 30 years older, so that makes a difference, but yeah, he is one of the ones that also fictional. Also, this is when I was younger, was Legolas from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
I forgot about that one.
You're not the only one. I know you're not the only one.
I actually, that little obsession with Legolas, kind of led me to make a pen pal from England. And that was through an Orlando Bloom fan forum that we kind of got talking, and then we would for years we would send letters to each other, and it all started because of our shared love of Legolas.
That's so cool. When was the last time you guys shared a letter?
Oh, I think I was still in my teens. No, I haven't heard from her in years, but
if
it
you're
was nice.
Out there, pen pal, reach out, reconnect. That I love that fictional crush is bringing people together across the world.
Seriously, and even one year we mailed each other Christmas gifts, and Aww. So I had purchased a snow globe from Disneyland, and then she had drew me a picture of Legolas, and then framed it and sent it to me. So it was really
that's so
sweet.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
God, maybe somewhere in my keepsakes.
Oh my gosh, that would be worth a dig through. It's like a time capsule.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't know who is my current celeb or fictional crush. I don't know. I'm just going to say Pedro Pascal because
Yeah.
uh, I know just like jumping on the bandwagon, but I mean, there's reason to jump on the bandwagon here.
That's a good one. I mean, we also have the shared one of Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes.
He's like
Bullet
hot.
Train all day, every day.
Yes. And then Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
We have that one too.
Yeah, we do.
Those ones have been safe so far, so it's like okay to
Don't
mention
F
those.
it
Yeah,
up.
don't fuck it up. So yeah.
All right. Icebreakers have been broken, so let's go ahead and get into it. So, before attending today, you read part 2 of the story of Robbie. So, we're going to have a discussion inspired by that section of the story. First question. At the beginning of the piece is when I began my college career. I speak to wanting to have a quote unquote traditional college experience, although that was already destroyed once I had to take a gap semester. What was your college experience like?
Long. I feel like it was pretty typical for people who go to like commuter colleges. So obviously I'm born and raised Southern Californian. After high school, I went to community college, and because throughout high school all they told you was like, yeah, it's great if you go to community college and get your GEs done in 2 years.
Oh, really? I wasn't told that. I was
Really?
just like, apply and go to the... Nobody told me about community college. Thank goodness I ended up going.
Yeah.
Because it probably saved me a lot of money, but no, they're all like, apply to your 4-year, blah, blah, blah.
Oh
Yeah.
no, they encourage community college, which obviously, cost wise it's really helpful for a lot of people who can't afford how expensive universities are for your institutions, but when they told us about that, like they made it seem that they didn't make it seem, they flat out told us like 2 years at community college and then you transfer to your 4-year and then another 2 years, then you're done. But when I got to community college and like the first week I went to go see a counselor and I let them know like, yeah, I want to transfer in 2 years, and they like literally laughed in my face and said they're like, oh yeah, no, that's not gonna happen, like maybe 3 years if you're lucky, but like likely 4 years. And that was just like a slap in the face, because I mean right then and there it's just like doubling the time that you already had like set in your head. So I went to community college for 4 years, and then after that I transferred to university. I went to Cal State Long Beach, and yeah, it took another 4 years to finish my bachelor's. So and like when you go to commuter school, like, and for me it was a good 45-minute drive to get to Long Beach, if not longer. But it's not like what you would think of as a typical college experience, or like there's I didn't stay in the dorms. I wasn't really in any like clubs or anything. I was friends with the people in my major and the classes I would take, but for the most part it was very get in, do your work, go home when you can. And then I also was working full time, so
Because of course you are. How else are you supposed to pay for it and start saving up to pay for those loans that they told you were no big deal?
Exactly. Yeah. So so it was long, and not what you would, not like the experience of someone who's like living on campus and like out of state or anything like that.
Now that I think about it, because for as much as I seem to have yearned for the quote unquote traditional college experience, and by that what I mean is what we see like portrayed in the media, that because when we're younger we don't hang out with college kids, we don't know anybody going to college unless maybe we have an older sibling, but I'm an only child, so I didn't, and you're the eldest, so you didn't. Yeah, you just think like you go, you live in the dorms, you have a great time, and then you get your degree. They never talk about finances in those movies.
Yeah. Not a word.
Unless it's, the rich kids are getting picked on because, they got their way paid through while the other one has to work their way through college. But again, numbers are never talked about. But but having yearned for whatever I was yearning for in the traditional college experience, thinking about, all of my friends and people my age, I don't think really any of us had a quote unquote traditional college experience. I think most of us commuted.
Yeah.
We stayed at home to save money. And this is before I think we really realized that how valuable that was, that we needed to stay home to save money. Like, I think we knew, but I don't think we just really knew how, like, hard it was going to get moving forward.
And, like, I mean, Southern California in general is just, I mean, California is a commuter state, so you're obviously going to be commuting no matter if it's work, if it's school, like, see your friends, whatever. You're just always in the car. You're always driving. So that's just, I don't know. I feel like that's very, like, very typical. And unless, like, people were coming from out of state, like, those were the ones that were going to be staying in the dorms. But for the rest of us, yeah, we just drove. We just sat in the traffic for hours.
Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't raised in Southern California. I did move here to go to college, but I still didn't do the dorms, probably because I couldn't afford it. Yeah. I think you're also, being born and raised here, you're used to that traffic. Like, it's not, it's not anything new. It's just this time you get to drive.
Yeah.
And you're in charge of the radio. So what did you end up getting your degree in?
So I have a bachelor's in textiles and clothing, which is fashion design, which is how I do the costume work I do. And I also have a certificate from Long Beach in collections management for textiles and clothing. And then I have 2 other certifications in dream tending from a different institute. It's Pacifica Graduate Institute, and that is like near Santa Barbara, which is Carpinteria. So those are my qualifications, I guess.
Yeah, that's a lot of good stuff you've got under your belt. That's awesome. Okay, so after reading the ending to my story of Robbie, what parts of the story stuck out or resonated with you, and why?
Well, like when you were describing, like I think when you were just describing yourself at that time, like I could visually see, I could visually see the clothes. I could visually see you at Hot Topic. I could, like, it was very, it was a very like visual flashback experience, because I think, like, so I went to Catholic high school. I went to pretty much Catholic school almost all my life, except my freshman year of high school, which was my first and only experience in public school. Hence why I went back to Catholic school. But so we always had to wear uniforms. Like I always wore uniforms. But like, when we would go to, back then we would go to the mall and stuff, Hot Topic was one of the places that you go and it's almost like, oh my God, it's like edgy, you're kind of like scared to go in, like, because we're like these sheltered Catholic school kids. And so I could like see, like, I could visually see that, like, it was, in like almost like the, Robbie who you like also described, I could also kind of see this. For me, it was almost like, what's that guy, James, is it James Spader?
Yes.
Like, okay, James Spader-esque kind of like white guy. Like, I could kind of see in my mind's eye with like, well, I mean, back then it was like the hair, at least over here, like all the guys had their hair spiked, but, so I don't know how it was in, where was this?
This was in Texas.
Texas.
Yeah.
I was like, I know it was in South Dakota. But, yeah, so, but like, that's what I was like seeing. I was seeing like the visuals of it, like of the storytelling, and just kind of like flashing back at the time, like, you describing Avril Lavigne and just seeing all the hot pink and black in my imagination,
which happens to be my favorite color combination. So
a part of the story that I like resonated with was like the like uncomfortable like feeling of like trying to play it cool when someone that you like or are attracted to is like in front of you, like kind of like interacting with you in a way, like referring to you, and like even though in your heart, in your body, you're probably like freaking out, like, oh my God, but you're trying to keep it cool, like keep it
like it's no big.
Yeah, it's no big deal. Like trying to play it off like, oh yeah, no, it's totally fine that you're talking to me, but then like really you just like you're dying inside. So all of that was really like resonant to me.
Hey, well, first it makes me happy that you were really transported back to Hot Topic, because I actually don't feel like I really gave that too much detail, but the fact that you were still able to transport back there, I love that, because that's part of what I want to do with my writing, because I really think millennials, there's probably a deep set reason why we are so nostalgic. If you put, that's a whole different discussion, but given what we're going through now as adults, there's a reason why we want to go back. So I'm so happy that took you back there. And I love how you described, like, it was kind of scary and you didn't, because do you feel like Hot Topic was kind of the first store, or kind of probably still, it's really kind of the only store in like mainstream of its kind.
I think back then, I don't know how it is now. Like, I haven't been in a Hot Topic like in years, but, I think back then it was really like associated with like, that's like entry level goth.
Yeah.
and so, I'm sure goths would like roll their eyes, but, you were kind of like taking a peek into a different, like subculture, that was like easily accessible because it's literally in the mall, and back then that's all we had. Like, we went to the mall all the time, so it was kind of like entering into another world. And you didn't know like they were gonna like accept you, or like let you, were they gonna be nice, were they gonna like tell you get the hell out because you were dressed in like a Catholic school uniform or whatever it may be. But like I think that was just kind of probably manufactured, but like definitely an entry level into like seeing what other types of like lifestyles and stuff were out there, at least back then. Again, I don't know how. I feel like it's pretty like fandom now, like Hot Topic. I feel like a lot of t-shirts, like graphic tees.
Maybe. I also haven't been to a Hot Topic in a few years. The atmosphere, the last time I went into one, it was still pretty much the same. But even back then, that's part of the reason why I enjoyed Hot Topic, was because they had they were one of the few stores that had a lot of fandom stuff.
Yes.
That's where I said, like, I got my Breakfast Club shirt and stuff like that. Which, even then I was into the nostalgia.
Yeah. The nostalgia before we were born.
Yes. Okay, so nostalgic tangent there.
Yeah.
But we're going to move forward. So I think that it's pretty clear to most of us now that, putting people into cliques sometimes isn't so cool or accepted, but this is something that both Robbie and I seem to have done to each other. I categorized him as a prep. He categorized me as a punk kid. Even if it was loosely so. It didn't bother me then or now, because I enjoyed the community I had with the other punk kids, and I still enjoy it when I attend a punk show now on very rare occasions, because I get old and tired. So what are your opinions on the nuances of, being in cliques or being put into cliques, and the fine line that it straddles with the human need to connect with a community?
I think, like you said, like there's pros and cons to it, and I really kind of think, I don't know how big your school was, but like I mentioned, because I went to Catholic school, it was a lot smaller, and so we did have cliques. They weren't as, and again, because we had to wear uniforms, they weren't as like apparent because everyone had to literally look the same. But yeah, there were cliques, and cliques in general, I feel like the deep down motivation of kind of like creating a clique or being a part of one really just calls to like this sense of belonging that we're all kind of looking for. Like we all, even now, try to find our people, try to find a community that is like-minded, has like similar interests and stuff. Those are the things that we bond over. And it kind of like, I feel like especially in high school, that like tendency, like that desire to kind of create these like little niche communities, like, you know, that are based on, you know, shared like experiences or interests and stuff. Like back then, I guess now too, but I feel like even more in high school, like it was more it like limiting. So like, yeah, like say you're a jock or you're a cheerleader or you're a goth or, you know, you're a theater kid, like those, like they kind of like kept you in those like spaces, you know. So like a lot of times like there was very little crossing of those, you know, like little groups. Again, with like my experience with my high school experience, like because it was such a small class, like our graduating class was like 120 kids. Wow. Which I know like my, you know, like my friends that graduated from public schools, like in the area, like thousands of kids in like the graduating class. So it was way different. So there was a lot of like crossing, you know, of certain like little click lines and stuff like that. I think I'm grateful for that. I you know, have mixed feelings of going to private school, but like I feel like there were certain aspects of that where it was largely like it was just everyone kind of like interacted with each other, even if you're not into the same things, even if you don't have like the same or like, you know, the core friend groups. Like there was a lot of mixing. So I don't know how that is with like, you know, with your college experience. Like did you have, or not college but high school, like was there, how big was your school? Because I know it was Texas. So
I mean, our school was pretty big, so I think we had maybe for my graduating class maybe around 300. It might be less, I might be over. It was definitely more than 120. Yeah. Like I did not know everybody you know, in my senior class. Granted, I did move there when I was a sophomore, so I had a little less time to, you know, kind of integrate with everybody. But I do like how you were talking about, you know, you have the ability to, you know, have the experience of cross-clicking, I guess.
That's a good term.
Yeah.
Cross-click.
You could cross-click with, you know, because your class was very small.
Yeah, tiny.
And I feel like that was one of the things that I did have an advantage with, because I was kind of an overachiever in the extracurriculars. I just liked what I liked. You know, I was in choir, I was in theater, and I was in journalism, and just those three things alone took up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
And then in my senior year, I added dance because, you know, why not? Mm-hmm. But, you know, all of those alone also have different kind of, like, they're all kind of their own little clique. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of crossing between them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was closer and more involved in some than others.
Yeah.
But I do see, like, an advantage in that. And I do see, you know, kind of like the hazards of, you know, sticking to your clique because you don't get to intermingle, which I guess that's kind of what the classrooms are for, but you're not really doing much socializing in the classrooms.
In the classroom. I think it's kind of like set us up for adulthood, you know, in that, I mean, I think especially now because like so much of our interactions are based online and like through social media, like I have a lot of interactions, especially because of the work I do with, you know, people who, you know, if you were put in a high school setting, they would maybe like be in different areas, you know, like different cliques. Maybe these quote unquote cliques wouldn't interact much with each other. But, you know, I think that like how you said, the hazards of the clique is that, you know, you get too stuck in this mentality that can kind of breed the mindset of like different being bad or scary or wrong. And I mean, that's what we see a lot today. You know, everything is so polarized, and that's just like in society, like American society, like is what we can speak to, obviously. But you know, like these, like it leaves very little room to try to understand other people, and understand different points of views, or understand different motivations or experiences or backgrounds and stuff. And yeah, kind of go back to that kind of high school, but also kind of like this archaic like mentality of it being different is bad or different is dangerous. Yeah, so it's like back then it might not have been that big of a deal because we were just like kids. So, you know, like very little consequences, I guess, like could go through that, other than like, you know, you dating outside of your clique and, you know, maybe your friends like teasing you about it or like not understanding. Or now I feel like those decisions to interact outside of like our little bubbles can be more impactful, you know, than obviously they were back then. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
They're all really good thoughts. Yeah, really good thoughts. One of the things that really brings to mind visually is I don't know if you remember the scene in Mean Girls when Janice Ian draws Katie a map and she's like, here's your cool Asians and your jocks and you know, your art geeks or whatever. The reason why that so resonates is because it's so true. Like you can kind of remember looking around your own school cafeteria and being like, okay, there's where they sit. And
yes,
you know,
yeah,
so
we had the same, me and my friends had the same area. Like we sat in, you know, and then like as the years changed, like, you know, we might move a table, or like we at one point we were like sitting in this table that was like kind of hidden behind one of the buildings that was like, so it was just like fully isolating ourselves from like the rest of the school. We're like, don't talk to us. Yeah, everyone kind of sticks. I mean, the same thing, like even when you go into class and it's like not assigned seating, I mean, people tend to stick to their assigned seating like from the beginning, even when you have the option not to do that. So yeah, I think it's really funny, like just like human nature.
Yeah, it's a sense, again, it's trying to form like a sense of comfort and security.
Routine.
And routine. And probably in a way to try to reduce stress, because we all know that
less
time of your life,
making,
it's already stressful as F. So next question. The main thing with Robbie is how this was a very minuscule crush. Like we're talking like it maybe not even like the full school year. When you measure it against the timeline of my life, or even just like high school years alone. Yet the memories I have of him, even though they're very few, still make me smile over 20 years later, which sounds weird to say, but that's how old I am. What are your thoughts on the impressions that a crush leaves on us as we go through our lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're very formative. And okay, like I mentioned, so in some of the work I do, I am a dream tending practitioner. So I work with people's dreams. For me personally, as someone who has always had tons of vivid dreams, like throughout my whole entire life, like that I can remember, I like crushes even from junior high, high school. A lot of junior high will come back and like find themselves. Like I'll be dreaming about them. It will be, you know, I'm 37, so you know it's been a long time for me as well. Like like 25 years, some of these, and you know I won't have like in my waking life have thought about these guys for you know, decades, but then here they come flooding back into my life and in my dreams, specifically. And even though I'm not someone who thinks like who like views that in the sense of like, oh, if a crush comes into your dream, then that means XYZ. I think it's all very contextual and very individual and personalized. But like for me, in my experience with it, like, and even if these like crushes were not like good experiences, you know, I have that, like those ones will come back a lot. They'll come back and visit me at night, and it's like this sense of like a part of me at that age, whatever age I was. So like, you know, in some cases like junior high, like there's like a part of me that is being brought to the forefront when I see these guys, like, you know, these crushes and you know, having them interact with me, like in ways that were different from when I was young. And I think like in general, even like the most like small or short, like crushes that we have, that like, you know, nothing ever came of it, no relationships or interactions or anything like that. Like, I mean, like they kind of like imprint themselves on us, and we, you know, it is, you know, like I don't want to use that term because it's Twilight, but
I know. That was the immediate vision that came into
not
my
that
head.
kind of imprint, but like they, you know, they just kind of like, they're almost like snapshots of time, you know, and like when you think back of like some crushes that we had, you know, when we were, you know, just little girls, you know, little teens and stuff, that, I mean, it just says so much about us in those time periods. Like, you know, what were we attracted to? Like, how did they treat us? Like, how did we feel in those moments? Like, it's just, I really just, like, they're kind of like little time capsules almost. And you could just like refer back to, you know, whatever crush it is. And then you kind of see yourself at that time, like see yourself like as that girl, you know, that is maybe like 20 versions of yourself ago that, you know, you wouldn't recognize anymore. But, yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
I love that. I feel like that was, you almost shook like a tear out.
No.
Because it was such a beautiful way to say that, like the snapshot, the time capsule, the especially when you said, you know, how did they treat us? Mm-hmm. That's, you know, that says a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and that is a way, it's almost like a exercise to do on yourself, to go back, and which you would think something as insignificant as crushes, mm-hmm. But it really could help you, like, you know, do a deep dive into yourself.
And because like so many of them, like okay, for instance, there's one that I like, he'll pop up in my dreams every so often, and he was a fucking dick. Like, he was horrible.
You know, we've all had a crush on one of those.
Yeah,
at least one, if
even
not more.
Yeah, even my best friend from that time, like, you know, she's like my oldest best friend. Like, we've known each other like our entire lives. She remembers it, and she's like, I can't believe, like, we just talked about this recently. She's like, I can't believe, you know, like, how could you like him? I was like, I don't know. He was horrible. Like, he was horrible. But it was, so it's kind of like this, like, I don't know. It's kind of like saying, you know, it's kind of saying something about yourself and your self-esteem in that moment, you know, and, you know, there's not a chance in hell I would ever let that occur, you know, at my current age. You do see these kind of like progressions over time of the, you know, the behaviors and like what you will and won't allow in your life, you know, as you get older, and as you kind of discover within yourself like what your standards are for yourself and how you want to be treated. And like I said, there's like there's like a lot of crushes where it was just like even in my 20s, where it's just like, why? And yeah, it really is just kind of, it is kind of a mind fuck, you know, like going back and you're like, you kind of question yourself, like, what the hell were you thinking? Why were you, not even from like an attraction perspective, but just like God, these like, you know, these guys, like for me, guys, but you know, like, you know, they kind of treated you like shit. Yeah, even if it isn't like aggressively so, but it's more of it just like in the sense of ignoring you, or maybe they do kind of have a sense that you might have a crush on them, and they're just kind of like avoiding you, maybe like avoidance. Yeah. So
something that you said too, because again, you're bringing up dreams. I do think that part of the reason why I started writing the Crush Chronicles finally, which I don't know if I've mentioned this anywhere in my writing or in any previous podcast, but I've had the idea for the Crush Chronicles since I was like in my early 20s. And I think a couple times I started writing it, but honestly, I wasn't ready yet. So that's probably why, it didn't start until last year.
If we were in our early, or you were in your early 20s, it was probably like you were still in the midst of crushes. Like,
heck yeah, I was.
Yeah, like that, I remember. So.
Yes. We did not present this earlier, but Kim is like my best friend, and we've known each other for
20 years.
20 years.
Next year will be 20 years.
Next year will be 20 years. So she was very much there. We were there for each other during all of those mid-20s crushes.
Yes.
Early 20s crushes. But yeah, so I really didn't start taking off with writing the Crush Chronicles until last year. And what got me to do it finally was I had a dream about Robbie. I don't remember what it was, but obviously it was enough to activate something in my brain. And while my youngest daughter was in karate classes, I grabbed my iPad and just started typing away, and that's how Robbie came out. So
see what happens when you listen to your dreams.
Yeah.
Like, see what can happen. It was like now you're recording this. Like now you're in the midst of writing your memoir, and like you are, having these discussions with people, and because you kind of like literally like followed your actual dreams.
Yeah. And it's funny how I almost like forgot about that, that it really was like, that's what got me to pick up, pen and paper, but it was my iPad, to really just, get it started. Again, don't know what the dream was about, but I do remember like waking up one morning and being like, and just the feeling couldn't go away. I couldn't shake the story of Robbie that I had wanted to tell along with all of these other stories for so long. And yeah, so it's very interesting how that all kind of circled together there.
Yeah.
The next question I want to ask is, besides the experience of nostalgia, which is obviously really like cropping up everywhere in my writing, in our discussions, but in the reminiscence of crushes that I hope readers get with this story, I also riddled it with millennial nostalgia, especially when describing what the teens of 2002 were packing for a bus trip out of town. What do you get nostalgic about when you think back on where you were and what you were doing in 2002?
Well, I thought of it because I was like, what the hell was going on in 2002? I think I actually kind of blocked out that year until like you had specifically asked about it. Only because like, okay, obviously 2001 was a very pinnacle. Like there was a before and after of 2001. You all should, that are listening, I'm sure are aware because you probably lived through it, but it was, 9/11, that was like, seared in our collective memories. But 2002, I was trying to remember, and then I realized why I had blocked it out, and two of my grandparents died that year.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother died in February, and my grandfather died in March. And so I think it was really, really traumatic because, I had experienced a lot of death throughout my life, but I was really close specifically with my grandmother. She died of stomach cancer. And so, for that 9 months prior to that, we had kind of like witnessed her like rapidly declining health. And then, like I said, my grandpa, who had always, they weren't married. It was my mom's mom and my dad's dad. But and that's what I kind of, like, I was like, what was going on then? And so I remember being out of school. I remember like a lot of, going to a lot of funerals. And I like, the only like real thing from school specifically that I remember was having to kind of like let people know why I was missing for a few weeks and stuff. And I remember someone who had this guy who had a crush on me in high school. Like, he was asking why I was gone, like when I went to go pick up my stuff, my homework from my locker. And, I let him know that my grandmother had died, and he's like, oh, that sucks. And I was like...
It's one of those moments where you don't know what to say.
You don't know what to say, but I was like, really? Like, no. Like,
but that's also not what you wanted to hear.
I'm like, okay, it does suck, actually. Yeah, indeed. But I remember very clearly. But yeah, so that's like, unfortunately, that's really that's what's in my memory of 2002 specifically. I transferred also to in high school. Like I was also a transfer for my sophomore year, and that was I think 2001 2002 year. So that kind of obviously 2002 was sophomore junior year for me. Otherwise, I do remember like hanging out with like friends, like which is more in my junior year. And I think that's probably like when we were having like little like house parties, and like one of my friend's older sisters like sneaking us like Smirnoff Ice. And so we thought we were so cool and grown.
Such the scandal.
Yeah, we were so cool and grown because we were having Smirnoff Ice, like, and the parents were gone and stuff like that. So I think those are my 2002 memories.
I remember having my first sip of a wine cooler, which has like no alcohol content, but I was like, well, I've done it.
Yeah.
I am not 21.
No, it's like the what's the beginning of the end? Like the
yeah.
This is like the gateway drug.
Yes. Yes.
You're so bad now.
I know. So moving on to the next question. Music plays a big part in my nostalgia, just in my everyday, never mind what it was that I wrote about. Mm-hmm. In Robbie's piece, though, I mentioned Avril Lavigne's album Let Go, which you mentioned earlier. And I know that CD was in constant rotation in my car that year. Mm-hmm. I also mentioned that whenever I hear any song by Led Zeppelin, I am reminded of Robbie. Just from a brief moment that we shared on a bus in Central Texas. How much do you think music plays a role in our memories?
Oh, yeah. I think music is extremely like important when it comes to memory. For me, the album that like was 2002 for me was Coldplay, A Rush of Blood to the Head. And I remember because I was in my history class, and it's such an inconsequential like memory, but it is so clear. One of the guys in my class, he used to burn, like he would pirate CDs. So he would burn CDs and then he would sell them for $2. Like all different types.
Wow, quite the entrepreneur.
Right? Yeah.
Man, I could have done that.
Seriously. And we did. We buy them all the time. So he would burn CDs, and he had the Coldplay one. And so I bought it from him because I was already a fan of Coldplay from their first album, Parachutes, which I think came out in like 2000. And so I bought it from him, and then I just like, that was on my like repeat, in my Walkman, on my just put the repeat button on and just like listen over and over. And also what ties into that is like at this time I was taking I think it was an English class, and again, when I went to Catholic school, but for some reason my teacher had us watch Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola version. Yeah. And
that's the one with Keanu Reeves.
And Winona Ryder. Yeah, so we watched that in class, and there was a song on the album called Politic, and I don't know why, but it really reminds me of this scene in the movie, I think towards the end, where like Winona Ryder is like, I don't know, she's like a vampire at that point or something. Like, it's like she's like, they have her on that hill, like they're trying to like, the men are trying to go find and kill Dracula, and then I think she's already been bitten. This is after, yeah. So anyways, it reminds me of that scene very specifically. But yeah, like Coldplay in general, but that album is just like pinnacle 2002, and yeah, 2003 probably for me. I was just listening to it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, so my 2002 is Avril Lavigne, your 2002 is Coldplay. Final question. If you were to write your own story, which crush in your life would you write about and why?
I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like they're all tragedies. Like,
hey, I mean, people love a good tragedy.
I know,
I
that's
mean,
true.
people are still over here jonesing over Romeo and Juliet.
That's true, yeah.
So, I mean, you can write all the tragedy that you want.
You know what? I would probably write, so I had this wasn't high school. This was like, I was in my early 20s, I think. And I was going to the gym and I had a personal trainer and he was really hot, like really, really hot. And we had like a really good like rapport. Like he would call me his favorite client and stuff. And I had so I like developed a huge crush on him. I was like really excited to go to the gym and work out.
Oh, what a great motivator.
Right? That
is
a really
I might have gone.
Right?
Because I'm not a gym person, but maybe in my 20s I would have done that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like it definitely got me to go more often than I would have had I not had that crush. But the reason I probably write about that one is because, obviously like most other crushes, like nothing came of it. And it was again kind of like an instance of like my worth being tested, I think. Like what will I allow for myself? But the reason I would write about it is because literally he kind of stood me up in a way, like, but that day that he stood me up is when I kind of like things ended up starting up with my like first like long-term boyfriend, which I didn't know like would happen at the time. So it like that kind of for me kind of like catapulted like a different relationship that like ended up lasting for 3 years. So I think, and also because like the thing that he kind of I stand up is a strong term for this, but kind of like stood me up on was it was the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it was a premiere at Disneyland, and I went and I invited him to that. So so that's why it kind of like, I think because all the other crushes I have, like, I don't know, it just feels like sad. At least this has like a story to it, Plus he was really hot, so
yeah. Could be fun to reminisce about that.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of something that you were talking about earlier. How going through these crushes, you can still learn about yourself, even if it's about a self that you, as you said, would not recognize today. Like, I actually referred to myself when I was younger as teenage me because she's a different girl than who I am now. But all those things that we go through, like, how you said, we would have crush on dicks, and I feel like it's a rite of passage. Like we're all going to be there and do that. Guys that ignored us or didn't treat us well, we would have crushes on these guys, as well as the ones that were nice and did treat us well and stuff. But it's part of, like, we were young, and that's part of how we had to learn what we want. You kind of have to go through the good and the bad, as with most things.
Yeah.
In order to learn what you do want and how you want to be treated and how you don't want to be treated.
Yeah.
And to discover your self-worth, because we just go through so much at that time, and you kind of have to just go through it, whether it's good or bad.
And we continue to do it. I mean, like, obviously you're married, but like, I'm single, and it is still something that myself and my single friends like literally have, like, it, like, every time you have a crush and it doesn't end up the way that you hope, like, I mean, it's just all like reflectors. It's all just mirrors to, okay, like, what is it that you want for yourself? Like, what are you willing to accept? And yeah, like, even in our late 30s, these are still things. I mean, it's kind of sad how things don't change that much when you get older. You kind of still have to go through a lot of the same BS as you did when you were a teenager or preteen. But at least when you're older, like, when you have a lot of that experience under your belt, like, you're able to make decisions based on a lifetime of similar situations.
You've got a good filter.
Yeah. You would hope anyways,
point.
hopefully.
Yeah. I would, at least, even if it's just a little filter.
Even
like,
a little filter, yeah. Hopefully
you're
learning.
Bit. Yes.
You need to learn from every experience when it comes to crushes and relationships, because they really do matter. Even if they feel like inconsequential, it always tells us something about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Okay, so we could probably keep talking forever. That's literally what me and Kim do.
Yes.
When we were in our 20s, we would talk for hours just in the parking lot at work. So we're going to save you that, and we're going to stop here because we've come to the end of our time. But before you go, Kim, can you please share where listeners can find you?
Yes, you can find me, especially if like you're curious about any sort of dream work stuff. But you could find me on Instagram at the Astral Priory. I'm sure Rachel will like link all of that information, because the spelling. But so you could find me there. You could visit the website as well, which is theastralpriory.com. And I think that's kind of it. I'm not really on any other social media aside for those.
If there's anything that we think of afterwards, it'll definitely be in the show notes along with what you mentioned. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me, Kim.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. We'll have to have you back another time. Yeah. I feel like, especially with your dream work, with, a story I have, like, on the up and up, in the works, your insight might be valuable.
Yeah, you know me. I'm always like very interested to hear people's dreams. That's all I want to hear about.
All right. Okay, well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Thank you so much for listening. It means the world to me. If you like this episode and would like to hear another, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you have some extra time, check out my Substack at jitsy.substack.com. The link will be in the show notes. That's where you can check out my memoir series that inspired this very podcast. And you can take a look at the real life stories and experiences that inspired the topics that are discussed in each episode. If you'd like to support the show and keep future episodes coming, you can buy me a coffee. It helps fuel the writing fire. The Crush Chronicles is 100% produced by me, Rachel Jitsawat. The music is by Music Town, and the sound effects are by Pixabay. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep crushing it, because no one can crush it like you can.